And I want you to just play along and imagine, or just pretend, that you own a typical house with a white picket fence, a garage, a backyard with a few trees. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you why I'm here at Flomenhoft. I was a faculty member for 12 years at the University of Vermont, and during that time, we calculated the value of all of the resources, social and natural resources in Vermont, and we submitted a bill twice to the legislature to create a permanent fund and a dividend for all of the resources in Vermont. And Vermont is a very poor state as far as resources go, but there are other things that are extremely valuable even if you don't have oil. Let's pretend you own a house, you have a garage, a backyard with a few trees, a basement, or maybe just rent a house. You've got a well because you live in a rural area, like where I live, we have a well, no city water, and you've got a guard dog. Now imagine what you would do if the following thing happened to you. You've got some cash in your drawer for emergencies, maybe $100 or $200, and it starts to disappear. Like $5 or $10 is like disappearing every week out of your drawer. The garage starts to smell really bad, like someone had left the car running. It choked you to go in there. Your well is starting to run dry. Someone is cutting trees down in your yard while you're away at work. And your kid's pet ferret is missing. Kind of sounds like an episode of The Twilight Zone. And then one day, there was a burglary. It was a huge heist, but your dog didn't even bark. You woke up one day, and all your electronics were gone. All your TVs, all your radios, all your cell phones, and all your computers were stolen. The safe in your basement with some precious metals, rocks, and gems had vanished. The robbers had left lots of evidence, fingerprints, pieces of clothing, footprints. It had all the signs of a local crime syndicate called the Corporation. The dog had been fed treats by the thieves, and it even licked their hand. Bad dog. An outrageous situation, isn't it? You wouldn't tolerate this, would you? What would you do if this happened to you? What's the first thing you would do? Call the police, right? Call the police. Well, you call the police, and they won't investigate. The corporation had convinced them that it was all their property. It wasn't your property, it was their property. And the police didn't investigate. So that's the situation we're in. And you don't even know it. And here's why. As the fellow mentioned in the plenary, banks create, this is according to the Bank of England, banks create 97% of the money supply through interest-bearing loans, putting an invisible inflationary tax on everything. 40% of the cost of everything is interest, and money is losing value every year, chipping away at your savings and income. There goes the cash in your drawer. They have privatized the money supply. There is absolutely no reason to let banks create the money supply. Our Constitution gives that right to Congress, but banks have privatized it. And they expand the money supply every time they make a loan. So they create money from nothing and collect interest on it. If you or I did that, it would be called counterfeiting. 70 or 80% of bank mortgages are for real estate, which increases demand for a fixed supply of land, drives up the price of land astronomically, and increases the cost of housing and rent for everyone. The FCC, Federal Communications Commission, has given away 98% of our public airways for free. Yet the Communication Act of 1934 says that the airwaves are public property. That's a bigger theft than all of your TVs, radios, and cell phones combined. Only 2% was sold in a one-time auction, and quite often flipped, like real estate. They've privatized the spectrum. John McCain even said they used to rob stagecoaches, now they rob spectrum. Now, it just came out the other day, Jeff Bezos makes $230 million a day from the internet. And ISPs charge us money to connect to the internet. Well, U.S. citizens paid for 100% of the technology that created the internet through an agency of the government called DARPA. So where's the return on our investment? Imagine if you were a private company that created the internet, and everyone was using it for free, what would you do? You'd go to court right away. So they privatized the internet, which belongs to all of us. Uses of fossil fuels for carbon dioxide and other emissions into the atmosphere at no charge. Degrading the environment, making us sick and changing the climate, like poisoning your garage. That's what we call free lunch. Mineral rights are often mined in the United States under the mining law of 1865, which says they only have to pay $5 an acre. That's just like stealing the treasure chest out of your basement. Boiling companies take groundwater for free, like depleting your well. Then they sell it back to us for $6 a gallon in plastic bottles, and we buy it. Power plants take river water for free for cooling water, then degrade it and put it back in rivers. Timber companies log on public land, and the government subsidizes them to do it at a loss, like taking the trees from your backyard. Biodiversity is declining rapidly as we're creating the 6th great extinction, like stealing your pet ferret. So how did this robbery happen? And why didn't the dog bark? The dog, which are the politicians, have been fed treats, campaign contributions, and perks from lobbyists to give them property rights to our public and common resources. The government isn't working, it's working for them. They're not working for us. The legal system, which is the police and the courts, have been convinced that the commonwealth of society is private property. And lawyers are not working unless they're getting paid. And no one is paying them to recover society's stolen assets. David Bollier calls this phenomenon silent theft. The silent privatization and draining of the commons of all value by private corporations. Why do you think they're privatizing it if it wasn't valuable? This is what I call the new enclosure of the commons. The original enclosure was just land. Now they're enclosing everything. Money and finance, democracy and governance, land and resources, labor and time, knowledge and education, enclosure of culture. This is the story. The rest are just the details. We calculated the amount that would be generated in Vermont and Australia if rent was collected on our commonwealth and paid as a dividend. And we calculated between $2,000 and $10,000 per person in Vermont, and in Australia it would be about $12,000 per person, not including any of the existing, not touching any of the existing taxes that use resource rents. Oil is not the only valuable resource. Everything produced by nature or society collectively belongs to us. That's how we can expand the Alaska model to recover our stolen commonwealth. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, we can move on to our last briefing. No one wants their commonwealth? I think we need lawyers to go after this money for us. I think we should create a public equity corporation. Imagine the contingency fee for getting back the spectrum. The spectrum is worth something like $600 billion a year. Imagine if you were the lawyer that won that lawsuit. Yeah.
Is the Alaska government, it's a silly question, but is the Alaska government actually putting something in place when the oil stops? When the oil stops flowing?
Well, you just heard two people talking about the struggle about what they're going to do when the oil runs out. And the answer, they've given you the answer to that, which is it's a real struggle. And I don't think they have an answer to that question. I think that we should move on because then we'll be pretty much right on schedule.
Yeah, great. Okay, we're Laura and Paul. We run an organisation in the UK called World Basic Income. It's a global campaign to take basic income idea to the global arena. So we're going to start with a presentation from Paul, and then I'm going to add some comments after that. So.
Okay, thanks, Laura. And thanks a lot, Milan, for expanding the discussion to Mongolia. And thanks a lot to Gary, because he's explained what the commons are to a large extent, and that's our big interest. So, lots of interesting information with regards to the Alaska model, and yeah, we'd like to move on that and talk about using dividends from the global commons to pay for a world basic income. And what we'd like to do now is we'd just like to show you a quick video of world basic income. It's only 2 minutes, so sit back and relax. And I think you might actually recognise the voice.
Extreme poverty today is completely unnecessary, and eradicating it is in fact incredibly simple. It is so simple that you might struggle with what we're about to suggest. A new global organisation should gather up money at the global level and then give money to everyone. Any amount of money would be good. We suggest starting with $10 per month to every person, every month, forever. This idea is called World Basic Income. Here's how it can be done. Step 1. We spread the word about World Basic Income until people all over the world are demanding it. Step 2. We set up basic income pilot experiments in whole countries. People with low incomes would benefit the most, so it makes sense to start there. For instance, a pilot in Sierra Leone would cost less than $1 billion a year. It sounds like a lot, but in global terms, it's peanuts. It's only about 8% of the UK's foreign aid budget. It's less than 1/500th of the US military budget. And in Sierra Leone, it would transform people's lives. Hunger would almost disappear, kids would go to school, people would set up small businesses. The positive impacts would be enormous. Step 3. With evidence from these experiments, we tell more people about the idea. We talk to global organisations like the UN, and we work together with campaigns who want to raise money globally through things like a carbon tax, through shared dividends or royalties on intellectual property. We talk to companies who can provide mobile phone-based banking facilities so that people in even the most remote corners of the globe can access it. Step 4. We work with these partners to start gathering up money, and we find some countries willing to try it out first. We get the scheme started. We learn from it and improve it. We get better at collecting money globally, and people around the world start to demand that this gets done properly so that they can get basic income too. Step 5. The world basic income is extended to more and more people in more and more countries, so everyone in the world receives it. Money circulates from the global elite back into people's pockets, and local economies thrive. Poverty rates tumble, and the trend of ever-rising global inequality begins to reverse. And all over the world, no matter what, every person knows they will never again be left to starve. If you think this is utopian, think again. A world basic income could change the world. It is radical, but it is possible. We have the money and the technology. Now we need your support. Spread the word, build the movement, change the world.
Well, I hope you recognise the voice there. Let me push on with the presentation that we have anyway, which we concentrate on the world's common resources. Here we go. So along with many basic income advocates, we propose that we revolutionise our taxation systems. We want to move the emphasis from income tax and sales tax to taxing the global commons. And as such, we all owe a huge debt to the Alaska model, which has demonstrated the advantages of such an approach. In World Basic Income, we've carried out quite a lot of work demonstrating that the resources and the technology, as you saw in the film, mobile phones, are available for a World Basic Income to be implemented. And today we'll share our work in progress on estimating how much the global commons could provide towards a World Basic Income. But first, I just want to indicate how much we actually need. If we were to pay the whole world at $10 a month, that would be 900 billion, less than $1 trillion. That's the wealth of a few billionaires, as it happens. Or we could start with all the countries with over 10% living in extreme poverty. We'll leave out China and India because they have their own schemes. That would only cost 209 billion. Or we could restrict ourselves to low-income countries with over 10% living in extreme poverty. If we did that, 68 billion. Or we could start with the 12 poorest countries in the world. They're all in sub-Saharan Africa. That would cost 16 billion. We're now talking peanuts again in terms of world finance. We actually made a proposal to the UN when they were looking for funds for Ebola disaster recovery fund. They were looking for about 4.2 billion, and we suggested why not spend 2.8 billion on a basic income and actually eradicate poverty in those countries. Or as you saw in the video, it's under $1 billion, 0.85 billion to put a basic income into Sierra Leone. So that's how much we need. Where are we going to get it from? The first choice for us is the global commons. I think Gary put it very eloquently that there are so many revenue streams that we could tap into. And what we've done is we've actually looked at a lot of these revenue streams. We've been very conservative with a small c, but I want to highlight one or two of these. I'm not going to go through them all because they're on our website, but certainly carbon tax. We're taking the IMF suggestion of $59 per tonne of carbon dioxide emissions. The World Bank, the Nicholas Stern report that came out last year went as high as $100 per tonne, might be necessary. So we are being conservative. You've got aviation shipping fees, intellectual property rights, we would say out of control. They need extra taxes. We've looked at Peter Barnes's work on that and made estimates. Another big one is land value tax. That's not even the resources below the land, that's just the land itself. And the revenue stream from that could be quite significant. We've looked at financial transaction taxes. Some of you may have heard of James Tobin, who won the Nobel Prize for Economics, who suggested that this could not only bring in revenue streams, but also be very beneficial to the world's financial system and calm down all of this volatility we see. We see wealth taxes. We take Thomas Piketty's ideas there, and maybe one for the future, common corporate shares, which Yanis Varoufakis, the ex-finance minister of Greece, has suggested. How much could all of these, and this is a restricted list at the moment, we'll look at other ideas, just this, with conservative estimates, we could raise $71 per person per month across the world. That's including babies to the very elderly, every single person on this planet. So asking for $10 a month, I think we can say that's pretty reasonable, because we can hit 71 very, very quickly. But that's not taking into account so many other potential revenue streams. So as I say, this is work in progress, but the one that you'll have heard of a lot recently is that Facebook, Google, they are using our data. They are harvesting our data for free. Surely they should pay for it. And that's even reaching publications such as the Financial Times, and I've put a web link in there where you can read the article in the Financial Times. We haven't looked at inheritance tax. We haven't looked at other taxes on pollution, both air, land and sea. I mean, I think the Blue Planet documentary from the BBC has reached a large part of the world. We need to protect our oceans. We need taxes on pollution in our oceans, but also air and land. We've only looked at CO2 tax. There are plenty more. And as we've seen in Alaska, other taxes on natural resources, such as oil, extremely beneficial, but there are other minerals that we can talk about again. And if we are to solve the problems in sub-Saharan Africa, that part of the world, the natural resources that are being extracted, so little of their benefit is going back to their own populations. It could easily be solved if we taxed properly. So, as I say, our figures are conservative. CO2 tax could raise twice as much if we tax CO2 at $100 a tonne, as suggested last year. Our financial transaction tax is almost half of what the EU Parliament has suggested that those taxes would raise. So, you know, this is not a crazy idea that we could actually eradicate world poverty quite easily. And I think we have to say that our vision is not in competition with any other national basic income efforts. We see ourselves as complementary. Okay, the taxes we suggest, no doubt, if many of them are raised, there'll be discussions about their use, whether they should be used nationally or internationally, that's fine. But those large amounts that are mentioned for basic income, $1,000 a month, or even 19,000 euros a year in Switzerland, in how should we say, the richer countries. We're not in competition with that. A lot of that can be a reform of the welfare systems in those countries, and you'll notice we haven't included those in our calculations. So what I'd say is the point of our organisation is basically to widen the debate on basic income and emphasise that the countries that should start with basic income should be the poorest in the world. That's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. We're trying to mobilise at the moment for a basic income in Sierra Leone, and as we've said, that costs less than $1 billion a year. If there's any billionaires in the audience, by the way, make sure you contact us. So our message is basically quite simple. We're saying, look, this is easy, this is possible, we should do it. And if we are going to do it, we know it's going to be a struggle, we know it's a transfer of power in the world, and the only way to change things is to build a movement. And so if you think it's a good idea, please join us. Thanks very much. There's our website, and I'll hand you over to Laura.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul. Okay, I'm on maternity leave, so I'm afraid I haven't prepared a lovely presentation like Paul has, but I do want to expand on some of the points that he made.
Let me just let you know that we have about 3 minutes left, okay?
Okay, great. Firstly, why $10? A big reason is financial feasibility. We have to raise this for everybody worldwide. But also, there's been a number of pilots in countries all over the world. So in India, in Namibia, current experiments running in Uganda and Kenya, where transfer amounts are very low, between $2 and $20. And the benefits of these have been fantastic. I was going to play a short video clip showing a member of one of those experiments talking about it, but we'll leave that. Secondly, what do we mean by the global commons? So we're talking about natural resource wealth that's not been created by any human work. We're also talking about historic human effort. So a lot of intellectual property revenues, really somebody has made a tiny adjustment to what is effectively a collective human inheritance of knowledge. And we believe that they should be paying a share of what they're making from their small invention in recognition of that. And also another category is resources that represent collective human input, so big data, the money system, sources of wealth that only work because all of us contribute to them. So really these sources of wealth should be construed as belonging to all of us, but at the moment a small group of people is getting extremely wealthy from using them without paying any rent or any share of their profits to the people of the world whose collective resources they're using. Finally, why a world basic income? So we live in a globalized world, and I'm sure that everybody in this audience has compassion that extends beyond the people sitting next to them and the people within their national borders, and extends to people around the world as well. We don't need to be limited by thinking about what we can do in our own countries anymore. Basic income is an absolutely brilliant idea. We support it on a national level, and that's where we began our thinking on this. But we thought, this could be bigger, we don't need to be limited in it this way, let's make it global. As we've demonstrated in the presentation, the wealth is there. and we have the means to tap into that wealth. Given that it's possible to do, it's also possible to run a global basic income scheme using current technology. Given that it's possible to do, we feel that it definitely should be done. Benefits to mankind could be absolutely enormous. And so it's time to start the campaign. Please do join us. Thank you.
We have about 2 minutes left, so if there's any questions, we'll take them now.
The World Commons or worldwide basic income being administered.
I'm so sorry, we can't really hear what's being said on the microphone. Would anybody perhaps you can say it to the computer?
How do you envision implementing like the administrative world basic?
So one more time?
How do you envision administering like some system like that?
Yeah, okay, how we would administer it. There's various options. We are interested in developments in blockchain and the potential for and decentralized management of this. But there's other options where organizations such as the United Nations or the World Bank could run this. I think a lot of people feel very nervous about a globally administered system, but really there's already a lot of globally administered systems in operation that are working to benefit the very wealthy, such as world trade systems. And we believe that using those global arenas to support something that's good for people everywhere is another use of them. So there's a lot of options.
Can I just add to that, that the experience of the Alaska Permanent Fund is very important to us, and we do envisage a fund, and who administers that fund is less important than the details of how that fund should be managed, how the fund should be used. And I suppose that we would gravitate towards a situation in which the administration of the fund should come from other resources, but maybe 100% or a fixed percentage of that fund should go to transfers of basic income. And I'd add to that if we get a nice portfolio of sources of revenue, then the volatility that we've seen with respect to the Alaska Permanent Fund, you would dampen. So it would be a very good idea to get various sources of revenue into that fund so that we don't see one year it's very big and the next year it's very small. Okay?
Okay, I think we've run out of time, and I wanted to thank Paul and Laura again, and all of our speakers today. Thank you very much.